Hello, everybody. This is Lindsay from PMP. I am a coach here, as well as I hold dietas both individually and with groups. And welcome to our webinar today. We're going to be talking about the nervous system and different methods of helping to regulate the nervous system and using both plants as herbs, as well as connecting with them consciously and in different ways to support this as well. So what else do I have here? And we'll also probably do a couple of activities and may keep that a little short since we don't have a lot of people here. But we'll kind of go over some different things too, some rituals and different things that you can work with to help regulate your nervous system. But first, we're going to talk about the effects that stress has on our body. So basically what it means to be regulated and the effects that stress can have on us. Um, so first of all, it affects our nervous system. It can cause the body to go into fight or flight, which increases adrenaline and cortisol production, can lead to panic attacks, anxiety, and other things of that nature. It also affects your endocrine system. The cortisol can disrupt the hormonal balance, can contribute to thyroid dysfunction, raises the risk of stroke and heart disease, hypertension, definitely not fun for your heart as well, and promotes inflammation in the blood vessels, which also is connected to all of those things. It affects our respiratory system, can cause shallow breathing or hyperventilation, kind of really breathing heavily, over like almost over breathing. It can also trigger asthma attacks and worsen existing respiratory issues. Whenever we get more stressed, it just activates all of that a little bit more. Um, it affects our digestive system, the function, and the enzyme production. It can cause nausea, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, and increases the risk of things like IBS and ulcers. It suppresses the immune system. Um, it increases the vulnerability to infections, slows healing, and contribute to autoimmune flare-ups if you have an autoimmune condition. It also affects our musculoskeletal system, causes muscle tension, especially really in kind of the neck and shoulders. I know anyone that feels stressed, you kind of like get that bunched up feeling where it can kind of really gather there and lead to chronic pain. Tension headaches is a very common way that it affects that system and increases the risk of TMJ. Again, probably just from so much clenching over time, it can really have some effects there on the body. It also affects our reproductive system, can affect the menstrual cycle in women, and libido and sperm production in men. Skin and hair can trigger things like acne, eczema, and so forth. Excuse me. And sleep, of course, can cause restless sleep, especially if we have racing thoughts that can really keep you up at night. And just the quality of sleep and our affects the recovery and our mood. We can also have a lot of effects of stress on the mind and our mental health. This would include things like impairing our memory and concentration, increases the risk of depression, anxiety, and hopelessness. This is also over kind of long term most of the time. A little bit of stress is one thing, but just the way that affects us over, lifetimes or periods where we go through deep stress. It can reduce memory recall and short-term memory function, increases rumination, and again, that overthinking that happens so much from it, contributes to negative thinking patterns, reduces motivation and interest in activities, and can trigger kind of all of the other things that come along with that: PTSD, panic disorder, depression, anxiety, and so forth. Can also lead to burnout and amplify things like ADHD, and just really aggravate conditions that we already are dealing with. Sorry, the sickness is almost gone, but still lingering here. Effects of stress on our emotions and emotional health. It can heighten irritability and frustration, triggers anger and anger outbursts, causes feelings of overwhelm, and being kind of really flooded with information or a lot of feelings just kind of overcoming and overwhelming you. leads to emotional exhaustion and again burnout, because there's the mental burnout and there's also emotional burnout and physical burnout of the body, which are all connected. And all of these can be amplified and kind of antagonized by high levels of stress. It also contributes to low self-esteem and self-doubt, and just really kind of emotional disconnection can happen from um, lots of stress in our lives, as well as changes in mood and emotional regulation. You know, because if your nervous system isn't regulated and you're kind of in this really stressful place, it can kind of knock that regulation of your emotions out too and lead to really extremes or outbursts and things of that nature. And also just reduces our resilience um, to coping with the world. There are other things that it affects is also kind of our spiritual world. It can create, again, that sense of disconnection, almost like a lack of a higher power or a connection to a higher power or like a purpose can start to feel sort of separate from us. Dull intuition and inner wisdom can sometimes happen. Just even having that kind of trust and faith in whatever higher power or spirit that you believe in. When we're really stressed out, sometimes it can be really hard to feel connected to that and to trust that. Can also impact our creativity and being able to connect with our passions. Um, and just having gratitude and joy, which we'll see is another way that can actually kind of reconnect us and help our nervous systems, is being in a state of gratitude. Um, what else? Oh, and it can create or worsen energetic blocks and imbalances as well. So one of the things that we'll work with here is some plants that help with that, and also creating sacred ritual and sort of some ways that you can do that to kind of alleviate these symptoms. Um, and also, you know, I think the other thing to recognize is to acknowledge that when we see stress as something that can be a catalyst and are able to come to it and use it as something that we can see to highlight these things that are happening in ourselves, that there's a reason that this is coming forth, and that being able to use some of these other things we're going to talk about, you will be able to kind of turn it into something that can help you to reconnect and to rediscover what those passions are and your self-awareness, and even help to bring about some transformation. So we're today going to use the power of intention and connection, as well as plant allies and various modalities to understand how we can ease the effect of stress, return to balance, and kind of restore our nervous systems. Okay, so excuse me again. Um, so there's two aspects of the nervous system, which we should kind of start there so that we know what exactly we're talking about. First is the sympathetic nervous system. This prepares the body for action. It's what triggers fight or flight, and it almost kind of gets demonized some ways in that, because we still need the sympathetic nervous system, because it is kind of bringing us to an action, and there are times where we need fight or flight, and it helps us to be able to respond to the world. Um, and respond, like prepare for physical activity is also a part of this system. It increases heart rate, breathing ability, can improve eyesight, and slow digestion. So it's really taking our body out of, which can take us almost out of those body processes and moving towards responding outwardly. Um, it's part of the autonomic nervous system and also controls a lot of the automatic functions of the body. In fact, the two parts that we're going to be talking about the most are both a part of that system. And helps us respond to danger and triggers responses to get us out of situations. Um, so the problem that I think we often see with this one is when it's overreactive and then we have too much stress, so we're reacting so much and not able to get out of that fight or flight into a more calm state, which comes from our parasympathetic nervous system. This promotes relaxation, digestion, recovery. It's the rest and digest system that sort of helps everything to sort of slow down and really get the body to come back to that calm center. Um, kind of re-regulating the system into a more peaceful, calm state. Relaxes the body when we're out of danger and helps us to feel safe, which we'll see is one of the important things that we're going to be talking about as well. That this sense of safety is a big part of regulating the nervous system. It also controls processes like blood pressure and sweating, and it helps us to calm rather than be in danger. So it relaxes and reduces activity. As opposed to the sympathetic one, who is going to increase the activity. It also manages several functions, including sexual function and processes. So these systems actually work together, controlling many of the same things, but having a different action on them. When in times of danger, we're going to work with one side, and when we're needing to be kind of calm and coming back down to the state where we're going to be a little bit more in our body and slowing down, then we're going to be back into the parasympathetic nervous system. And because what we're kind of talking about is stress and coming out of that kind of state into a more calm state, we're going to be moving more towards the parasympathetic nervous system, just because of the action that we're working with. I think that's the main part of the introduction, right? Okay. So the key is to find balance. And since our world is often, like I said, stressful and overwhelming, for most of us, this means we want to be coming back to a calm state and coming to regulate it by triggering the parasympathetic nervous system. Being able to respond to triggers, then return to calm, is not a static thing. This is something that's always going to be in fluctuation. It's not like you're going to stay in one state or the other. There's always going to be using the two of them together. But anytime we're having this kind of overstimulation, we want to be able to kind of come back down and help our body to relax and calm and feel safe again. So one of the ways we can do this is through breath work, excuse me, which helps. Wow, breath today. I think it's this cough. Which can help to regulate both sides of the nervous system, depending on what kind of breath work that you're doing. But slow, deep breathing, especially with a long exhale, can really stimulate the vagus nerve. It can really help to get back into soothing that parasympathetic nervous system, which lowers the heart rate, blood pressure, and helps to reduce cortisol, which will, again, be something we'll mention numerous times here, as that's part of the stress response. Many people overbreathe, like I mentioned before. They kind of hyperventilate, especially when you're in that kind of activated state, which can lead to anxiety and dizziness. And the breath work can help to restore the appropriate rate of breathing. So many types of breath work really work with kind of bringing like a pattern and a soothing process back to our breath. So there's different kinds of breath work, and it's all going to depend on exactly what you need at the moment. You can kind of go through and find some different things to try and see what works for you. My personal favorite is alternate nostril breathing. It's just the one that I like the best because it really feels like it helps me to kind of balance the two sides of my energy. Other things that can help are time in nature, which is very grounding, helps us again to return back to the connecting to the earth, brings our system into stasis and reduces overwhelm. And again, I think there's just that reconnection that really is central to coming kind of back down into that state of calm. Other things that I really enjoy that I think really help me with regulating my nervous system is baths. Which are wonderful, again, kind of being in water. So you're still working with that element. And there's, as we'll talk about, some different plants that you can use. A lot of them, you can utilize the essential oil, and it's really nice to put that in a bathtub too and kind of amplify the effect that it has. And also just allowing yourself to rest and take breaths and just to make sure that you're getting food when you need to. Sometimes when we get stressed out, it's really easy to ignore our hunger impulses or have that overreact, to either not sleep at all or sleep too much, is to really kind of listen to the body and get back into that state of really feeling into it and being able to work with your body can also really help to get yourself back into a balanced state. Okay, so plants for this section. First is passionflower. Oh, I love passionflower. I will kind of maybe start by saying one of the things when I dieted passionflower that I found so fascinating was I thought that because I was doing it as a social diet, I was afraid that I was going to be really tired. Because I was like, oh, she's gonna be so regulating, like I'm just gonna be so calm, I'm not gonna be able to work. And it ended up being that because my nervous system was so regulated, I was actually more confident and had more energy because you're not wasting all that energy. It's not kind of going all over the place and wasting it on all the stress. It was really kind of grounding that energy in and being able to really be kind of centered and grounded and confident, as opposed to just being tired. And I think that really made the distinction for me in this of the difference between being calm and being tired. Because oftentimes tired comes from the stress too. So something kind of fascinating on the side. So she reduces anxiety, supports sleep, helps to regulate the stress response. Uh, what else we have here? Increases GABA, which is a neurotransmitter that calms brain activity, lessens racing thoughts, and invites in a relaxed state that actually invites confidence, as I mentioned. She's a mild sedative, so she can help with restlessness and overwhelm, soothes the sympathetic nervous system and the vagus nerve, so helps us to shift into that parasympathetic state. Can lower I can't talk today. Lowers cortisol and eases stress-related tension, and may potentiate sedative medicines. So I would not recommend taking it if you take benzodiazepines or other sleep aids, just because too many sedatives at one time can be too much for the body. Another one is mugwort, and she's interesting because she simultaneously has stimulating and sorry, I got somebody coming in here. Simultaneously has stimulating and calming properties, depending on how and when you use her. She acts on the nervous system, the digestive system, and works in the dream state, which makes her kind of versatile for dealing with a lot of these things, including stuck energy, emotional stagnation, and nervous tension. Um, and a lot of times it's the emotions and traumas and things really getting stuck in the body that also can be something that's triggering our nervous system. So in that case, she can be really, really helpful if that's part of the problem that you're having that's really kind of giving you a lot of the problems with your or feeling like you're dysregulated. Mugwort can be a really, really great ally for that. She calms the nervous system while promoting clarity and alertness too. And I think this is kind of interesting because there, again, is that clarity where we talk about how the stress causes the kind of brain fog, that this regulation that she can bring can really help to bring some clarity in. So kind of seeing that same side where it's not like a sleepiness all the time. I mean, some of them can be sedative, um, but there is this clarity and confidence that comes through when working with some of these plants in particular to really regulate our systems. Um, she soothes rather than sedates. So I think that's really, again, kind of the core, some of the core part of what some of these plants can do that helps to really get us to this place where we feel good, right, regulated, and it's calming the system, not making us sleepy. When the nervous system is sluggish, dull, or blocked, she can activate subtle energy. She can activate a mind-body connection, which again, really feeling back into our body and aligning ourselves with these things can be very supportive in helping us to feel more regulated. And which is connected to also her lucid dreaming and intuitive enhancement. And just like I mentioned before, this disconnection from spirit that can happen when we feel dysregulated. Working with some of these plants, particularly mugwort, is really great for this, of really tapping in again back into that intuition and connecting to spirit, which can also in itself kind of double down and really help us to feel regulated and calm and connected. Um, she can be drunk as a tea, used as a tincture. You can smoke her if you like. You can also smudge her. put her in a pillow, like a little sachet to put under your pillow or any kind of little packet. So there's lots of ways that you can work with her. She brings to light the subconscious and really helps to, I think, reconnect our mental and spiritual integration, and brings this wise presence to the whole nervous system and to us consciously. All right. What else? Okay. So lavender acts as a nervine and anxiety reducer, and she's a gentle antidepressant, which is, I think, one of her special properties in this too, because so many of these are nervines, but she has that kind of effect as well. She can be especially helpful for overactive, stressed, or depleted nervous systems, and really helps us to surrender into whatever is happening or whatever we're dealing with. And really, I think that's one of the aspects that's really powerful with her, as far as kind of helping us to re-regulate our system, is to just kind of allow it and stop fighting it, because that fight also creates more stress, and it's stress in itself. She also regulates cortisol and moves us from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic nervous system. She's another one that can increase GABA, which is the neurotransmitter, again, that helps us to find calm and to be more relaxed. So she calms excitability and reduces anxiety, overstimulation. She's one that's really, really great to work with the essential oil. In fact, sometimes I'll take a roll-on with me to work to be able to just put a little bit on your wrist and kind of just smell it, to significantly reduce anxiety. Her antidepressant effects are from the influence that she has on serotonin and dopamine as well. And she works physically too, to reduce muscle tension. She can help with headaches and nervous stomach. So again, it's kind of that same thing where she's working with the body and working with our mental state, and just really utilizing different aspects to bring us back into this regulated state. She can also enhance sleep quality, creating more deep and restful sleep without sedation or grogginess, which a lot of sleep aids and things can unfortunately bring on. But lavender helps you to actually get into that nice, really deep sleep without kind of feeling kind of foggy when you wake up. And she's very safe. I know I've even had held diets for a woman who was still breastfeeding a baby, and you have to go gentle with it still. But she's one of the few oils too that is safe for children and the elderly. So a very sweet, calm plant if you need something gentle to work with. Another one that I think is great here is mullein, who does have some nervine qualities, but he's a little different. He's a gentle support for the nervous system and eases tension and stress, particularly in the chest and lungs, and helps to remove things again from our emotional body. He can relieve trauma and tension in the body, which shows up as tightness, grief, shallow breathing, achy muscles and joints. In fact, that's one of the things he's really, really good at, is kind of lubricating our joints and releasing tension from the muscles, and really getting into the body aspect of it and letting go of all of both the physical tension and things like that, as well as being able to release, again, the traumas and emotions and things that can be trapped in the body that's further antagonizing this dysregulation of our nervous system. And also opens the breath too, which again, with the breath work as well, he can be really good with the breath work, because of really being able to kind of open and lubricate the lungs, and helps to expel things out of the lungs as well. And he's a gentle anchoring energy, and he's known for helping you to stand tall. I mean, I think he's a biennial. So the first year that he grows, he's just kind of like a plant on the ground, like it's big fluffy leaves. And the second year, a big stalk comes up with these yellow bright flowers on the top. And there's something about like that kind of staff and upward energy that is associated with him, that is both kind of that grounding and again that reconnecting to spirit and reaching up from that groundedness, and just reconnecting the whole system together. um, so supports clearing physical, again, and energetic mucus, as well as physical mucus from the body, heart, and lungs. And just really great overall plant to work with, and very, very soothing, um, soothing ally. Okay. So meditation, which of course I think I'm sure most, if not all of you, have encountered and know that that would be something that we might talk about here. It helps to regulate and restore the nervous system by shifting into a state of presence and balance. Over time, it can help adapt to stress, build emotional resistance, and even rewire the brain. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system and again lowers cholesterol, or not cholesterol, cortisol and adrenaline, and creates a more stable kind of baseline, especially again over time and practice, um, so that things don't hit us so hard and that we're more able to respond and recover more quickly when we do have our system kind of get agitated and go more into that sympathetic state. Um, It also strengthens the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision making, focus, and emotional regulation. So, of course, then it makes sense to be in alignment with regulating the nervous system back into a parasympathetic state or into balance. Um, there are lots of types also of meditation, just like with the breath work. There's mindfulness meditation, loving kindness, body scans. There are lots of recorded ones available if that's up. If you're not really familiar with meditation, sometimes that can be a nice place to start, just to kind of get yourself in a practice and sort of feel into different types and ways of doing it. There's breath focused meditations where you're maybe counting breaths or doing different things where you're working with focusing on the breath. Mantra or sound focused meditations. There's also visualization. So, again, it would be something where you're going to really want to figure out what works for you and just feels the most comfortable, or maybe different things at different times. Sometimes people like to mix it up. I really like doing the body scan meditation, especially I think for when I'm working on regulating with my nervous system, because you're really connecting the mind and the body and kind of working through feeling into different parts of your body and feeling what might be being held there, breathing into them, so oftentimes tensing up different parts of the body and then releasing it and kind of feeling what's letting go. For me, that's one that's just particularly helpful. There are a number of plants that I would associate kind of with ones I think that are good with meditation. So you could use all of these plants on their own as well. Um, excuse me. One is Kava, which is a really interesting plant. So he's from the South Pacific and contains something called cavalactones. Um, and you'll see people take kava in a lot of different ways. Sometimes they take it as a tea. They might work with the powder of the roots. There's a number of different extracts that have become popular, often being much higher in the cavalactones. One of the things I find really interesting about this with kava is that where he grows on these islands, each sort of little village has their own language and their own cultivar of kava that they've been working with and cultivating within their community. And each one of these, while they're all kava and related, are all kind of individually different too, and they have different mixes and potencies of these different cavalactones. Um, so it's a really interesting world to get into. And each one of them, because there's different cavalactones and different um, amounts of each one in the different ones, they can have slightly different effects. So sometimes it takes a while to kind of maybe play with some different ones and figure out what works the best for you, or what combinations, or if you just prefer taking the extracts that have the higher amounts of the cavalactones. But kava is a powerful muscle relaxant, which, excuse me, lost my place. which can help to calm excitability, relieve tension, and enhance feelings of peace in the body with mental clarity at lower doses, can start to become sedative at larger doses. So it just depends on how much you want to take. I would definitely recommend using caution at first, until you kind of feel into how he affects you, because it can be more sedative in larger doses, and especially in people who are sensitive to things like this. But he's powerful for enhancing the GABA receptors, which again is the neurotransmitters that help us to be calm. There's a deep sense of calm, groundedness, I think especially because it's part of the roots, seems to kind of bring that in. Shift to the parasympathetic nervous system, releases muscles and body tension, especially in the neck, shoulders, and jaw, which, as I mentioned before, is one of the places a lot of the times that we hold stress, especially when we're dysregulated or really feeling a lot of tension. It offers a somatic release by really letting all of the muscles and things to relax and let go. This action signals safety to the body, especially again in the proper dosages, that it can really help you to just sort of settle and ground into your body and feel kind of that tension releasing. It can also be kind of uplifting and euphoric. Again, I think it just depends on which kava you're buying from where, and affects the serotonin and dopamine. So again, reducing anxiety and things of that nature. Great for nervous exhaustion, irritability, sleep, definitely one that I reach for when I'm just needing to really deeply relax so that I can go to sleep and really kind of let not only my mind, but my body to relax as well. So it can really help with that kind of tension, as well as tension headaches. And in some cases, particularly if you're not using medications, because it can interact with a number of those, can be really good for mild panic attacks too, in some people. Let's see. I would also say that Kava's not one that I would recommend for daily use. While he can be a really great ally to lean on with daily use, there is a kind of risk of possible damage to the liver or just kind of irritation to the liver. I've seen some things that say that's not true, and other things that say that like this is definitely something that's there. So I think that's one of those times where we just have to kind of feel into how often and how much we want to utilize him, and lean on him. But you definitely don't want to take him with alcohol, again, benzos or other sedatives. And if you already have a liver condition, then it might just be safest to lean on one of the other allies that we will discuss. But kava can be really, really lovely for just really helping to find that deep kind of calming. As a powerful ally for the body tension, and as long as used responsibly, can be just a really great way to help us. Another one that we will talk about, especially with regards to meditation, is green tea. This provides a unique kind of dual action that we'll only see in a couple of these plants, where there is some stimulation from a small amount of caffeine, but then you also have L-theanine, which is something that works with calming the body and is, again, activating our GABA receptors. So it's naturally kind of a balance in itself. It also works with not only the GABA, but helping to modulate alpha waves, serotonin, and has been used for centuries in meditation for this purpose of really both bringing in that sense of calm while kind of having enough kind of alertness to bring the focus and kind of mood and awareness that can be useful to have during the meditation. Let's see. Can bring sharpened attention and helps with fatigue and calm rather than just like an over nervous excitement from some other plants like coffee that might have too much caffeine, to really help us be kind of focused and grounded and calm in a meditation or when we're trying to regulate our nervous system. It's a really nice balance to work with. And it also helps with oxidative stress, supporting neuroplasticity, and can actually potentially reduce neurodegenerative disease. So really, really just great for our brains as well. So when we're working with the nervous system, really supporting our brain is definitely a part of that, since the brain is clearly a part of the nervous system as well. Let's see. And not only working with the dopamine and the serotonin, but also increases the availability of those two things, which can really enhance the well-being and motivation that we need to kind of reconnect and feel into our nervous systems. Lots of ways you can take green tea. You can obviously drink the tea or matcha. If you don't want to do that, you can take capsules and extracts. He also works really, really well, or she also works really, really well with other adaptogens and other herbs that help to kind of work with the nervous system and help the body to fight off stress. Um, I think that's the main thing there. Okay. So another sort of more getting into this state of meditation and mental health kind of herb is one that's called Brahmin, or Bocopa is another name that's given to him. He is a powerful nootropic, a calming cognitive enhancer, an adaptogen, and a neuroprotector, which I think is really important in this, because these kind of plants are, it's almost like that long-term support where we're not only calming the nervous system, but we're really helping to support and nourish the nervous system. And I think that that shows up with this plant in that not only that it can help with stress, cognitive decline, and mental fatigue, but it's not one that you're necessarily going to take because you want immediate relief. This is something that's going to kind of almost build in the system. And over time, when you really start to feel that nourishment and kind of regeneration of the nervous system and the brain. Works with a lot of the same receptors, or serotonin, dopamine, and GABA, reduces cortisol, but can also really help with learning and memory, improve our attention span, again, especially over time, memory, recall, and retention, and mental fatigue as well. It encourages neurogenesis of the neurons too. So again, it's where we're kind of over time, which is, again, I think why it's really good with meditation, because you're really building this adaptability to your brain and your nervous system. And so you have these ones that you can kind of use initially, and then a lot of these other plants that are really good for through the long haul, kind of creating that maintenance and really building a long-term stability. Because it actually tones and nourishes and really strengthens our resistance through time. It's also non-stimulating, so it can promote calm alertness. And you really need probably about 4 to 12 weeks to really feel, I think, the long-term actual deep benefits of the plant. And the more that you use it, that the longer it will start to show more and more effects. Okay. So now we're going to talk about ritual and how that can help to um, help us to regulate our nervous system. So using ritual can create consistent, intentional practices that help provide stability, again, safe spaces to release emotions, and just a really grounding space in our lives. It can ease the nervous system as we're creating this, again, sense of safety that really helps to kind of regulate and center us and help us to release the things that are keeping us from feeling that way. Simple repeated actions like making tea, lighting a candle, journaling, prayers, singing, all of these can send a message to the brain that you're in a safe and secure place, especially kind of the repetition of these things, and creating this sense of calm and association with them together can really kind of give us space and tools to be able to work with to create those feelings when we need them. This also offers us time to connect to our guides, plants, allies, all the things that protect and support us. And that helps to usher in that sense of connection, which also, again, helps us to bring this stability and feeling like we're connected to something more than us, and that there are things that are kind of helping us in this world. Slow, mindful movements, even when simply making a cup of tea, can be grounding and centering and really just being conscious about these processes, even when we're just making tea and drinking tea or whatever it might be that we're using for our ritual, that the more presence, because that's another thing we've been discussing, that real deep presence in the things that we're doing and with the plants that we're working with, really helps to kind of reinforce all the things that we've been discussing. And using the power of intention can also inspire feelings of empowerment and having an active role in our lives, which really can help to downregulate the stress hormones. It gives emotions a safe place to surface and to be honored rather than suppressed. And moving them into that space of releasing and honoring them can really change the way that we're working with that energy and shift the essence of that energy in general. Anything can be made into ritual. So we spoke about taking baths, really being conscious about the bath and adding the oils or whatever it is you might be using and lighting the candles, drinking the tea even in the bath or before or after, making a whole process and ritual out of it. Can really make a difference. Walking in the yard, sometimes you'll see the meditations where literally one step and then one step really slowly and focusing on each aspect of that step and every tiny movement is just really able to help to connect you and create this sort of ritual meditative state. Things like even just moving the body or allowing yourself to dance, really letting the body just kind of find ways to move and let things go and making that a part of a ritual can be very special and impactful as well. Ritual connects us to something greater than ourselves, to nature, ancestry, to spirit, to our intentions. And all of this reinforces this sense of belonging and meaning that can help us again to feel that connection and safety that really helps to ground in and bring us into this state where we're able to regulate our nervous system. That also activates our oxytocin system, which enhances our sense of trust and feeling of being supported, which again helps us to come into this place where we feel really safe and our body is able to be calm and come back into that parasympathetic state. Just some steps for kind of creating ritual, just as a really basic kind of structure, I guess, that you obviously can play with and do whatever you want to with. So first of all, creating a safe space, whether you're going to call in your allies and all the beings that you work with, whatever they might be, plants, animals, ancestors, or whatever, maybe smudging, lighting a candle, definitely setting an intention is really important, and just kind of setting up the whole space so that you feel protected and ready to go. Something I like to do that I actually learned from Kat is to kind of call on your sanctuary, to just take a moment and sort of sit in your heart and think about the place that you feel really safe and just that feels really good to you. It can be an actual location. It can be a made-up location. It can be a place that you've been in your life before, but really just feeling that and really connecting with that sense of that foundation of feeling safe and just the good heartfelt feelings, and really holding that into your kind of heart, even tapping on it to kind of heart and seal that down in. Then to use some kind of prop or activity to help whatever emotion or whatever it is that you're working with to rise. It can be a photo, it can be different items that kind of inspire different memories for you, a question or a situation you want to ponder, a song, even just thinking about whatever particular memory is kind of coming up or whatever particular trauma or emotion that you're working with, but to find a way to really start kind of helping that to move forward. Also having comforting items like having blankets or crystals or the different teas that we've been talking about can really be supportive in helping you feel safe as this release is happening. And as you're processing, also taking time to write, to move if that feels necessary, to really feel, and whatever helps you to process. And then at the end, I think that it is also, again, really then useful to take that space where you're kind of tapping on your heart and coming back to that safe space. So as you've been processing all of this, you're able to kind of come back down into a safe feeling of being grounded in your body and into this space that makes you feel like you're secure. That I just like to say gratitude for any of the beings, plants, animals, etc., that were a part of the process, and to give yourself some time to really process and integrate whatever you worked with in the midst of that ritual. Obviously, there's a lot of room for you to kind of add whatever you like into that process, but that's kind of like a basic structure. Some plants that I personally like to call on for when I'm doing rituals like this, Rose is my number one girl. And she's really heart opening and nervine and really adept at healing trauma and releasing trapped emotions, especially in the body. Um, and really helping us to remember to love ourselves so she can be really great for processes like this. Bob and Santa, who we like to call the cheerleader of the plant world, and who is absolutely wonderful for kind of holding our hands through releasing grief and again coming into this sense of self-love and remembering who we are and how we need to be treated and move into the world, and also protective, which again, then white sage is one that I like to call in more for this sort of protection aspect. And she also has a purification aspect to her, which I think can be really specially used during these kinds of rituals, not only in protecting that space and creating boundaries around yourself, but to really help for those things to kind of be cleansed out of you. She can really be supportive with that and to bring ourselves kind of back into alignment. Um, and yarrow as well is really great for psychic and energetic protection, and really remembering our vitality and calling back of all of our own energy and kind of protecting ourselves from these energetic leaks. So I think that he can be one that's really great for using in rituals and has been used in many, many rituals for who knows how long, forever, maybe. So those are just, there's lots that you can use for this, and whatever you're called to, but those are just a few that I like to work with when I'm doing something like this. So the last part that we will talk about today is working with tree energy. Trees are incredible for simultaneously really grounding us while also helping us connect to the spirit or sky, and feeling even that whole trunk in between, kind of like I talked about with Mullen. There's like this staff or center pillar, if you will, where we're able to really connect all of us from our groundedness down into the earth and being up connected to the sky and feeling that whole thing all working together and feeling the energy move. So one of the things we can do is to really call on the roots of the tree when we really need to feel that groundedness, especially if you're kind of really in your head. Calling on the roots can really help the nervous system to reconnect, I think, to that earth energy as well. I mean, the tree's roots are oftentimes at least 2 times further down into the ground than what we see above the ground. So they really have this incredible capacity to help us reconnect to the earth. Um, The evergreen in specific, I think, at least for me, maybe just because I've worked with a lot of them, are especially supportive with helping us to refine that vitality and resilience. And that helps us to find balance within our nervous system as well, to really kind of reconnect to that core of the resilience within our being. Trees are also the guardian of the forest. So they provide protection and feelings of safety, which, as I've been talking about, is a really big part of kind of helping to regulate the nervous system. Um, they're a safe haven to animals and birds and insects and masters of connection, as can be seen through the way that they communicate through the mycelium, um, through to everything, basically, not only to mushrooms, but to each other. And they can transfer food and energy to each other through that network and through the ground. So really that connective aspect coming back through again with the trees is really important. And trees are a living community. Like I said, not only they're an ecosystem in and of themselves, but also of the forest. And it's just this really amplified way of really feeling that deep connection of all that is and of the energy of the entire forest and the earth. And really an example for us, I think, to, especially with everything that's happening in our world, that essence of needing community and really being connected to each other and to everything else in the world, and that there's not this separation, that we all have this kind of connected communication that needs that community. We need our tribe and the forest. Um, what else here? Let's oh, yes. Trees are also really important in helping us to remember to be present. Trees have long lives, but they're also really connected to the present moment and often communicate messages along this line. They're just really able to help us be where we are now, that there's like this whole grand scheme of everything all the time, that we're kind of like, it's easy, I think, when we have these anxious moments to be caught in the future or the past, either ruminating on something or from the past, or projecting all of the things that you have to do in the future or what might happen in the future, and really coming back to that sense of present can really help to kind of let some of that fall away. And trees are masters of that. They're also masters of soul retrieval and kind of retrieving a lot of these lost parts of ourselves, helping to bring back our own energy and to really just pull all of our essence back to us, and helping to us to feel kind of whole again. And again, that brings, I think, that same sense of grounding and connection and safety that is just a part of this whole process. Trees are also portals between heaven and earth and the underworld, and they can really help us to access these different sort of dimensions, if you will, I guess, and to pull out information that we might need to really help us support us through these processes that we've been talking about. So one quick thing that I would just also share here is basically connecting to tree energy. So this can be done with both a living tree, if you actually want to go and sit with an actual live tree. You could also do it as a visualization meditation, where you kind of like just go into a meditation and approach a tree. And you may even think about a certain tree if there's one that you particularly love. Juniper is one of my favorites. I think oak is also really good for this exercise, just because he's magnificent. um, but so to really take a moment and just kind of center yourself and set the attention to be kind of drawn to the tree that wishes to connect with you, whether again it's a living tree while you're like maybe walking in the forest or your yard, or whether you're in a meditation. When you meet that tree, I like to have an offering of some sort. Um, that can be tobacco, it might be sometimes a piece of your hair or something of that nature. Whatever it is, it just feels like something you can offer as a gift. It can be your heart, your intention. It doesn't have to be a physical thing. It can be a prayer, whatever it might be. But to give something is like an act of reciprocity, I think is really important. Um, and then when you're looking at this tree, I also like to confirm that it wants to connect with you. Because sometimes it's exciting to you think you find one and want to work with it, but it's not really going to work well if it's not one that really is open to connecting. Typically, I have found that most trees are, but just to make sure, kind of tap in and make sure that this tree actually wants to connect and share. And then you kind of have two options that I work with most of the time. One might be to literally stand, and they call them tree huggers for a reason, to actually like kind of put your arms around the tree. But I really like to sit in front of the tree and sort of lean my back against them, or you could stand and do it as well. But it feels like that for me really helps to connect with the energy, to actually feel my kind of spine against the trunk of the tree can be really beneficial for connecting to it. Then you're just going to feel your energy kind of aligning with the tree. I like to start with sort of feeling my energy moving down through the roots of the tree and connecting through its roots into the earth. Excuse me. And then also sort of feeling it going up through the trunk and reaching out through the heavens, and really kind of feeling that energy start to cycle together and to unify slowly. Um, Sometimes using like an in breath as I'm breathing down into the earth, and then an out breath as you're breathing up to the sky can also be helpful in kind of incorporating the breath into it. Whatever helps you to really start to feel like your energy is kind of unifying with that of the tree, so that you can receive whatever it wants to share, or even just working with the energy of it. You can stay there at this point, or then you can, like I said, ask questions, see if there's something that the tree in particular wants to share. I also like to ask how we can help them, or if there's anything that we can do, because this is, again, a reciprocal process. So kind of really building that relationship with this tree, I think, is just as important as we're focusing on what we're getting out of it. And just seeing if there's any kind of insight or healing. Sometimes you can even use this to sort of start a shamanic journey as well, if you're into that. But when you kind of feel like the process is complete, I kind of like to go back to the breath to sort of pull myself back into my own energy and ask the tree to release you. Kind of gently come back into your own body and your own energy, and make sure again that you thank the tree for its assistance and support. Okay. So there are many more techniques and plants that we can help to regulate the nervous system. As you may have noticed, um, much of their support comes in helping us with calm, learning to breathe, be present, feeling very connected, especially with our bodies, our emotions, the spiritual world, and really just helping us to kind of process and work with the world and come back to a state where we can feel regulated and safe and calm. I will be teaching a class soon that will dive more deeply into working with this, particularly with nervine plants, which are some of my favorites, a number that I've worked with really deeply and love. And also in connecting with the plant consciousness and really kind of like we were talking about with the tree, really being able to work with the actual spirits of the plants to more deeply be able to have these relationships with them that can really support us when we need this kind of assistance. Any of you who have signed up for this, whether you have come in at parts of this live or whether you're watching the recording, you can get 20% off of the class or any of the other services that I provide at PMP. When the recording is sent out, there will be a discount code that goes along with it for that. Um, I think that is the basis of everything that I had to share. So thank you to all that have been here live at various points of this recording, and to those who may be watching it in the future. I appreciate your support, and you're welcome to reach out anytime. You can also message me through PMP if you have any questions or want to discuss anything that we've been talking about further. I'm really open to, I love talking about this kind of stuff and connecting and communicating with plants. So hopefully I will see you all in the future. Thank you so much.